We do a lot of work at the Environmental Working Group on a wide range of issues. You may not have heard of Environmental Working Group, or maybe you have, but you've probably heard about some of the work we've done. We've mapped the routes to Yucca Mountain so you could type in your street address and find out how close you were. We've put the names of every farm subsidy recipient on the internet and the amount of money they receive. We've mapped some of the western public lands where mining and oil and gas exploration is taking place. And of all of that work, the one thing I want to talk to you about today is a very unusual research project that we conducted a few years ago involving 10 Americans, a very unusual group of people, because one day in 2004, we took one sample of blood from each one of them and tested it for 413 toxic chemicals. There's no group of people in the world who have ever had their blood tested for this many toxicants. And we found 287 across just these 10 people from one sample on one day. 287 toxic chemicals, about 200 per person. Now, among these were 28 different waste byproducts, dioxins, furans, all kinds of volatile organic compounds, things that come out of tailpipes, incinerators, consumer product ingredients, Teflon chemicals, Scotchgard, Stain Master, flame retardants, pesticides showing up in fruits and vegetables. And in some ways, most disturbing of all, we found 212 industrial chemicals and pesticides that were banned 30 years ago and still showed up in these people 30 years later when we tested their blood. Now, how were they exposed? How did they come to get an average, a total of 200 chemicals in each person? Well, it could have been air pollution, but it wasn't. It wasn't the air they breathed. We know that for a fact. There's 600 million pounds of pollutants emitted into the air in 2004, according to EPA, 650 different pollutants. We found some of those pollutants in their blood, but we know they weren't exposed by virtue of the air that they breathed. Might well have also been the water that they drank, but it wasn't. This is a study we conducted, building a big database. The National Tap Water Database, if you look it up on the web, is our product. EPA has not put together contaminant list across all water utilities in the country. We did as many as we could, over 1,000 contaminants there, but that wasn't the source. Could have been something in the food, but it wasn't anything that they bought at a restaurant or bought at a grocery store and came home and prepared and ate. That wasn't the source of their exposure either. They could have had over 1,000 chemicals. We found some of these just from the migrating chemicals that come off of packaging that have been approved for use by FDA. Again, that wasn't the source. 168 ingredients are used on average in the personal care products that women use every day, according to our online survey. We also have a big database of personal care products. Men use have 85 ingredients in their 6 different personal care products, but I want to point out that almost all of the men used both toothpaste and deodorant. So we want to get a little credit for that. Hey, thank you. Yeah, that was really one of the big findings. They did not work in a place like this. They were not farm workers or farmers. That's not how they came by the pesticides that we found in their blood. So who were these 10 Americans? How were they exposed? Well, the truth of the matter is we don't really know very much about them. About the only thing we do know is that when the exposures took place, they looked something like this. This was the first study that had ever been conducted of a wide range of toxic chemicals in umbilical cord blood. We went to the American Red Cross, applied to their research program for 10 samples. The samples were collected at hospitals across the country of parents who volunteered to have their cord blood used for research purposes. Once we received that, we sent it to 3 or 4 laboratories in the United States and Canada and had this array of tests done. Here's another view. This is the new technology, of course, the new ability to look at babies in the womb. This particular baby at nearly full term, look at him smiling, isn't that amazing? This particular baby at full term, he was being exposed because he gets about 300 quarts of blood circulating to his body every day from the mom, right? And for many years, scientists and medical doctors thought that that blood was purified by the placenta and the impurities were kept out. Not the case. which is a problem because this particular baby, like all babies at that stage in life, also did not have a fully formed brain-blood membrane. And so he didn't have the barrier that they have at 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and older to toxic chemicals. So the brain tissue is literally bathed in the blood without any filtration system. The other thing about this baby is it's mine. This baby, this was about a week before he was born. He's here today. Will this count on my time if I try? Babies like this in the womb are at their most vulnerable stage in life. Their organs are developing very rapidly, their brains, their hormone systems, their sexual development is being determined. Everything would tell you that you would want to protect them from toxic chemicals. And everything we know tells us that we don't. We don't do that. Now, of course, I'm all caught up in the joy of having this baby. My wife is here with him, and maybe you'll get to meet him later, unless he's fallen asleep during my talk. I hope you haven't. And the thing about it is now, you know, we've got sleepless nights, we've got crying in the middle of the night, we've got bottle feeding, we've got breastfeeding, we've got farting and pooping and tinkling and all those things. And then when he wakes up, he does it too. So it's really, my wife really has her hands full. But here's what we learned, the obvious thing. Industrial pollution begins in the womb. And these just weren't just any chemicals. When we matched them up against our toxicity databases, we found that 134 of them were associated with cancer in laboratory studies or in people. 151 associated with birth defects. 154 hormone disruption, and you're already noticing that this adds up to more than 213 because many of these chemicals have multiple toxic effects, right? 186 associated with infertility. 130 immune system disruptors, neurotoxins, 158 of those, you know, lead, mercury, PCBs, all kinds of organic chemicals that affect the nervous system. An incredible set of exposures, and that's what we found when we spent $10,000 per sample. What if we'd spent more? It's anyone's guess. And this hadn't been done before. It was a lot for us to raise that much money, but we don't really know where the number would go for the exposures of babies in the womb. Is it 100 more, 300 more, 1,000 more? What's the final number? No one has really any idea because no one has looked. And also no one has any idea what the effects of these exposures are because they haven't asked that question. And at this point, in some respects, it's too late.